On his first night in apartment 6B, Aaron heard footsteps directly above the ceiling. The strange part was that his apartment was on the top floor. The footsteps crossed from the living room to the bedroom, then stopped directly above him. 3 knocks sounded from above, slow and deliberate like a greeting. Aaron knocked back once, hoping to prove it was only old plumbing. From above, a knock answered from the exact spot beneath his hand. The next morning, the manager said the roof held only water tanks and vents. But when Aaron mentioned the knocking, Mr. Vale's smile disappeared. He warned Aaron never to open his apartment door after 3 in the morning. On the second night, the footsteps returned at exactly 3:13 a.m. This time, the footsteps were not above him. They were moving through the hallway. The sound stopped outside the front door of apartment 6B. 3 knocks came from the other side. Then a child's voice called Aaron by name. He looked through the peephole, but the hallway was completely empty. When he turned around, an old envelope lay in the middle of the living room. Inside was a drawing of a little girl standing before a door marked 7. In the corner was a clock without hands and 3 small circles. Aaron decided to inspect the emergency stairs before sunrise. At the end of the 6th floor stairs, he found a new flight leading upward. The wall that once blocked the way had vanished, revealing a 7th floor. The corridor mirrored the 6th floor, but everything looked decades older. The doors began with 7A and ended at one door with no number. A pair of dusty children's shoes waited before it. Three knocks came from inside, identical to those above his ceiling. A girl named Mina appeared behind him at the far end of the corridor. She told him never to answer the third set of knocks. According to Mina, the 7th floor appears only to people the building is about to forget. The unnumbered door was where the building kept everyone it had erased. To survive, Aaron had to leave the 7th floor before the clock reached 3:13 again. Aaron ran back to the stairs, but found only a solid wall. Mina said the exit opens only when the chosen person remembers what the building wants erased. Among them, Aaron found a photograph of himself moving in years ago. The back showed today's date, but the year had been scratched away. Vale appeared at the far end carrying a ring of black keys. He said the building needed one living person to keep the 7th floor alive. Mina had been the previous keeper until Aaron was chosen. If Aaron stayed, Mina would be returned to the world. Mina warned Aaron not to believe him. The building had never returned anyone. The unnumbered door began opening from within. Beyond it was not a room, but countless apartments stacked inside one another. Each apartment held a tenant erased from the world's memory. Aaron saw his mother inside one room, even though she was still alive. The building used memories to lure its chosen victims inside. Vale locked the corridor door behind them. Aaron remembered the first knock and realized it came from his future self. If trapped, he would become the source of every footstep he had heard. The only way to break the loop was to create a sound that had never happened. Aaron pulled an ancient fire alarm mounted on the 7th floor wall. The alarm rang and the entire corridor began to shake. The erased tenant stepped out and finally saw Mr. The ring of black keys began cracking in his hand. Mina led Aaron through the corridor as the stairwell wall reopened. Vale called Aaron's name and the doors tried pulling him back. Aaron covered his ears and focused only on the fire alarm. Mina stopped at the final step of the 7th floor. She could not cross because her name had been erased for too long. Aaron wrote Mina's name on the old drawing using ink from his pen. The drawing became proof that the world still remembered her. Together they crossed before the 7th floor collapsed. They returned to the 6th floor as the clock changed to 3:14. Mina now looked like an ordinary girl, no longer transparent. But Aaron's key no longer opened apartment 6B. Another family was sleeping inside. Vale had vanished from the manager's desk. The building records contained neither Aaron nor Mina. They left the building before dawn and never returned. Aaron helped Mina find the family that had believed her missing for years. For several weeks, every mysterious knock stopped. Then one night, Aaron heard 3 knocks from inside the wardrobe. When he opened it, he found only the coat he had left in apartment 6B. Inside the pocket was one of Mr. Vale's black keys. The key turned by itself and pointed toward the wall. The outline of a door began appearing on the wall. Behind it was the 7th floor corridor, now completely empty. At the far end, the new manager's plaque showed Aaron's face. Mina realized the building had not been destroyed. It had only chosen a new keeper. Aaron threw the key into the corridor and slammed the door shut. But the next morning, the same key was back in his pocket. And elsewhere in the city, someone began hearing footsteps above the ceiling.
Across the world, people have always told stories about spirits, shadows, and things that refuse to disappear. Some legends are born from grief, while others grow from fear. Sometimes a ghost story survives longer than the people who first whispered it. Tonight we travel through some of the most famous ghost stories in the world. Not to prove they are real, but to understand why they never disappear. Our first story begins in Europe, where castles and cold corridors have long been filled with mystery. There, people whisper about a white figure that appears and vanishes as if it were never there. It's the legend of the White Lady, one of Europe's most famous ghosts. From France to Germany and beyond, the figure appears in many different versions. Yet they almost always share the same themes: sorrow, waiting, and a silent warning. Many versions say the White Lady is the spirit of a woman who died in grief. Some say she was betrayed, some say she lost the one she loved, and others say she was trapped inside the castle. People believe she often appeared before major family tragedies or dramatic events. That is why the White Lady became more than a ghost, she became an omen. Whether real or not, her presence made every castle corridor feel more haunted. Leaving Europe, we travel to Mexico, where a cry in the night has haunted generations. They call her La Llorona, the weeping woman. Legend says she was once a mother who, in despair, caused a tragedy that could never be undone. Afterward, her spirit wandered endlessly, crying out for her children. Many parents used the story to warn children not to wander out at night. That is what makes La Llorona so powerful. She is both a ghost and a warning. Her cry is not described as anger, but as grief that never ends. Some claim to have seen her near lonely roads beside rivers, canals, or lakes. Though the story has many versions, the image of the weeping mother remains alive across Latin American culture. From Mexico, we move to Japan, where a modern urban legend has unsettled countless people. She is Kuchisake Onna, the woman with the slit mouth. Legend says she appears at night and asks a simple question. Am I beautiful is the question that begins the horror. In the legend, the wrong answer leads to frightening consequences. Its simple question helped the legend spread quickly among Japanese students. Kuchisake Onna is a classic example of how urban legends evolve in modern society. The fear does not need castles or forests. Sometimes it lives on familiar streets. Leaving Japan, we arrive in the United States, where a Tennessee home became linked to the famous Bell Witch. Unlike many ghosts that are merely seen, the Bell Witch was said to speak and torment the Bell family. The stories describe knocks, whispers, and strange disturbances inside the house. The Bell Witch stands out because it is tied to a specific place and family in American folklore. The tale gradually expanded from a local rumor into a national legend. What makes the Bell Witch memorable is not just the haunting, but the feeling that home itself is no longer safe. When the place meant to shelter you becomes the source of fear, the ghost story becomes personal. Next comes Ireland, where the deathly cry of the banshee became a symbol of tragedy. The banshee does not always attack. Her terrifying power lies in her cry. Legend says that when someone in a family is near death, the banshee begins to wail. That makes the banshee a messenger of fate, not just a wandering ghost. The deepest fear in this story lies not in her form, but in what the cry announces. The banshee shows that sometimes the true fear is not the ghost, but the loss approaching behind it. From Ireland, we move to Southeast Asia, where the legend of Pontianak remains deeply alive. Pontianak is often described as a female spirit appearing at night, linked to eerie laughter or strange sounds. Many tellings, she belongs to lonely roads and tree-filled places where fear grows easily. It stands out how this legend reflects very ordinary fears: darkness, isolation, and vulnerability. When everyday fear meets collective imagination, ghost legends become durable. Now we move out to sea, where another ghost chin lives in fog and salt wind. There's the Flying Dutchman, the most famous ghost ship in maritime legend. Sailors say the ship is doomed to sail forever, unable to make port. Those who see it often take it as a bad omen at sea. Unlike ghosts tied to homes or families, the Flying Dutchman belongs to the fear of the sea. It represents the feeling that the sea follows its own laws, beyond human control. Looking back, each culture seems to shape its own kind of ghost. Yet beneath their differences, they all speak about deeply human fears. Fear of losing loved ones, fear of abandonment, fear of darkness, and fear of the unexplained. Because they touch real emotions, ghost stories survive across generations. Many ghost stories also function as warnings or moral lessons. Some stories protect children from danger, while others remind adults that actions carry consequences. And some stories survive simply because humans enjoy being frightened from a place of safety. The more mysterious and unprovable a tale is, the more room imagination has to fill the gaps. That is why each generation retells the same story in a slightly different way. Famous ghost stories do not have to be real to have real influence. They travel into books, films, television, and even modern online rumors. Whatever the format, they still perform an old function, making us pause and wonder what hides in the dark. Perhaps the true fascination of ghost stories lies not in the ghost, but in the darkness inside us. They reflect what we fear, what we regret, and what we cannot control. That is why a famous ghost story often behaves more like a mirror than a monster. The longer we look, the more it reveals about us and the world around us. Some stories may have begun with real events and then changed over time. Others may simply be perfect creations of collective imagination. Either way, they help us understand the cultures from which they emerged. A ghost in a European castle is different from one on a Mexican river or in a foggy sea. Each place gives its fear a different shape. And perhaps that is why ghost stories never truly disappear. As long as humans still fear, regret, and wonder, whispers will remain in the dark. And somewhere, perhaps right now, a new ghost story is already being told.
Some trains appear on every schedule, while others should never arrive anywhere at all. Kenji, a tired 29-year-old office worker, reached the station after another late shift. He missed the final train by seconds, and the station closed around him. Heavy rain and a dying phone forced Kenji to remain inside until morning. While waiting, he remembered the younger sister he had lost many years earlier. He often imagined her voice, but tonight it came from the unlit tunnel. The platform lights flickered as freezing wind carried a deep metallic groan. A silver-gray train without any number slowly emerged from the darkness. Black windows reflected Kenji while broken symbols flickered above, then vanished. The empty doors opened, and Kenji hesitated before the silent carriage. A warning bell sounded, and he entered just before the doors closed. Dust filled the carriage, where silent passengers guarded strange personal belongings. Their clothes came from different decades, yet none answered Kenji's question. An impossibly tall conductor appeared, hiding a completely blank face beneath his hat. He offered a blank ticket and warned Kenji never to leave at Platform 0. The punch clicked, darkness fell, and the faceless conductor disappeared without leaving a mark. A pale schoolgirl now sat across from Kenji on the previously empty seat. She called herself Aiko and quietly said he should never have boarded. Kenji asked their destination, but Aiko said the passengers had forgotten home. The train passed empty stations, including one filled with hundreds of open umbrellas. At the next station, rows of abandoned shoes faced the railway tracks. A missing person tag marked one suitcase, while an old family photograph faded nearby. Aiko revealed that every passenger had once disappeared from the outside world. The train collected people forgotten, misplaced, or slowly erased from living memory. Their journey ended at Platform 0, where forgotten names waited without owners. Flickering glass reflected Kenji's sister, smiling and calling him exactly as before. Aiko seized his sleeve and warned him not to answer the familiar voice. The train slowed through darkness as weak yellow lamps emerged inside the fog. Handless clocks watched as the doors opened before mountains of abandoned luggage. Beneath one yellow lamp, Kenji's sister waited in her familiar dress. She claimed she had waited for years and begged him to step outside. Kenji knew she might be false, yet grief pulled him from the carriage. As the doors closed, his sister dissolved into pale golden smoke before him. Aiko followed him down while the ghost train slowly departed into darkness. She said Kenji must recover his name before the train returned or be forgotten. The conductor's punch echoed behind them, and each flicker brought him closer. Kenji and Aiko fled into a maze of corridors beneath the station. Fading portraits covered the walls, while locked rooms whispered names of lost loved ones. Aiko led Kenji into a luggage archive larger than the entire station. Every suitcase preserved one final fragment of somebody the world had forgotten. Kenji searched thousands of white tags, yet none of them carried his name. While they searched, Aiko remembered running away from home after an argument. Her family vanished from reach, and Platform Zero completed the world's forgetting. Slow footsteps entered the archive, and each blackout placed the conductor nearer. Aiko pulled Kenji through a narrow passage toward a wall of hanging tags. Among thousands of old labels, a newly written tag bearing Kenji's name glowed. Kenji tore it free, and the entire underground station began violently shaking. From the darkness, the ticket punch snapped repeatedly like a merciless countdown. Aiko led Kenji through a service tunnel lined with pulsing red lights. The conductor stopped walking and appeared beneath each light whenever darkness passed. They reached an abandoned control room and saw the ghost train returning. The platform gate remained locked, and the ancient control panel was completely dead. Aiko touched the panel and awakened it using her final surviving memory. The gate opened, but Aiko's transparent body began fading faster than before. Kenji held her hand and begged her to leave the station with him. Aiko showed him a blank tag where every trace of her name had vanished. She could not leave because the outside world had forgotten her too completely. The conductor appeared at the corridor's end and raised his metal punch. Aiko pushed Kenji through the gate, then locked herself on the other side. Smiling for the first time, she asked Kenji to remember her name. The doors opened and Kenji entered as every station light suddenly died. When the lights returned, both Aiko and the faceless conductor had disappeared. Kenji held his name tag tightly until city lights returned beyond the windows. Before dawn, the ghost train stopped where his terrible journey had begun. The moment Kenji stepped outside, the train vanished into the empty tunnel. At home, his own key no longer opened the familiar apartment door. His mother answered and stared at Kenji as if he were a stranger. At work, his identification failed, and another employee occupied his desk. Nobody remembered Kenji or believed he had ever worked there beside them. Every family photograph on his phone had completely erased Kenji from the image. Only one childhood picture remained, with Aiko now standing behind the siblings. That evening, Kenji returned to the station seeking proof of the impossible journey. Near the closed platform, he discovered a wall covered with missing person photographs. A new photograph showed Kenji wearing the same coat and scarf from last night. Beneath it appeared his disappearance date, although he stood directly before the board. From the tunnel, metallic wheels began echoing through the station once again. The lights flickered, and a young woman's voice softly whispered Kenji's name. This time, he immediately knew the voice did not belong to his sister. Aiko called from behind the black window of the returning ghost train. In her pale hand, a white ticket now clearly carried Kenji's name.